That has to be the quietest minute we've ever had.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, it always takes, for some reason, it takes the 2 times to get it going, but it's going.
It's okay.
Okay, so we're good to go then.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a little notice. This meeting is being recorded. Okay, well, it is February 15th, and I'll go ahead and call this meeting of the Sustainability Advisory Board to order. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of the January minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to read through those?
Yeah, I move that we approve of them.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor then?
Aye.
Aye, all right. The meeting minutes are approved. I guess, let's see, next up we'll do member check-ins. So I guess I'll go ahead and go first since I've got the mic. I guess first thing I wanted to do is I sent the Westland Tidings article out to everybody, but I want to highlight that the city did not approve the sale of a property over in, I think, the kind of like Robinwood neighborhood, the Cedar Oak property. Just wanted to say I'm happy about that. I'm glad to see the city taking action to protect the stream over there. So I'm grateful for that. I also got an email earlier today. Apparently the Clackamas County Climate Action Plan final draft is available for everybody to read through. I just saw the email, so I haven't had an opportunity to look at that any, but wanted to draw that to everybody's attention.
I'm sorry, did you already send it out?
What's that?
Did you already send it to us?
No, the email came in from Clackamas County. I'm happy to forward it to everybody though.
Yeah, I've got it.
Oh,
Okay,
right.
yeah, I'll go ahead and do that just to make sure everybody that has it.
Good.
All right, about Dan, next up.
All right. Thanks, Mike. And good evening, everybody. Let's see, as far as just kind of things I've been up to, well, I thought our meeting working group with the city council went really well a couple weeks ago, and it was kind of inspiring for me just doing a little more research. So I've just kind of been building on, what we presented a couple weeks ago, just in line with the the electric leaf blowers and such. So I've just been doing a little more research on that, and specifically looking at Quiet Clean PDX. They have a really great website that has a lot of information and pretty active throughout the state. So I've just been doing a little more research on that. But other than that, just on a personal note, just doing a lot of research on EVs. And charging options locally as well. So, and let's see, I'll pass the mic to Victoria.
I want to say also how proud I was of this group at the February meeting with the city. I just really am impressed with the work that you all have been doing, and pleased and feel motivated. Yeah. So as for what I've been doing lately, yesterday my husband and I were up on Mount Hood just to have a little winter break, and it almost snowed. We were in Welch's, which is not very high, just 1,200 feet. But when we went up to government camp today, there was, I don't know, maybe 2 feet of snow beside the road, just up to the top of the guardrails. Not it's the something like 29% the snowpack right now. It's not very good. So it was a little worrisome. Beautiful and nice to get see some snow. We had a lovely walk along the Salmon River, but not very much snow. So good thing that this group is doing what it can. Greg.
Thank you, Victoria. I too came away from the meeting with the city council feeling, gee, we're actually acting like an advisory board and people are listening to us. It's wonderful. So I was really grateful to the city council for giving us the opportunity to do this, and like Victoria, really proud of what we were able to accomplish. I forgot to ask Mike to put on the agenda this evening what was happening with the Earth Day event. which we are going to schedule for the 27th of April, which is the Saturday after Earth Day,
Okay.
at the Ale and Cider House. And Charity is going to be able to be there. And we have been able to get about 3 merchants so far to participate. And I've also gotten the agreement of the Tualatin River Keepers, the Down to Earth Forest School, Robinwood Station. Let's see if I can read my writing there. Oh, Backyard Habitat, Eco Schools will all be participating. And I'm hoping that either Dan or Victoria will be able to represent the community gardens, and that I can do the neighborhood resilience piece again if somebody else could kind of represent the SAB at that time, at that meeting. If not, I'll kind of do the representative. Will you be there, Mike, on the 27th?
Yeah, it should be in town.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm happy
great.
to.
So I think, and
Actually,
I've also got.
nope, sorry, I won't be. That's a Saturday,
won't
right?
be,
I'm afraid
okay.
I won't be. I'll be at
Okay, good.
the Oregon State, no, the American Cetacean Society's 4th session for their Master Marine Naturalist training.
Okay.
Ooh,
So I will get in touch with you via email to see like whether anybody would be able to be free to kind of on that 2 to 5 on the 27th to kind of represent SAB. If not, I'll kind of forego the neighborhood resilience piece. And then I've also gotten in touch with Solve and Nature Conservancy to see whether they could participate. If you have any other ideas about organizations that could be invited, send them to me via email and I will get in touch with them. If you know a contact person, great. But it feels like it's coming together like it did last year. And I might sit down with Dylan at some point and see whether we can make use of your services again to make a poster. So, and then the last thing is the article from the Rural Yonder that I sent out to you. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it, but interestingly, it's about Grants Pass, Oregon, and their sustainability plan and effort to deal with climate change and access federal resources. So I think in new business, I'll kind of ask like whether you think it would be worth sending that out to the rest of the council and city staff. So let's see, Kate. We're just doing introductions.
Right, I'll say hi. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. It's a kind of a funny day in our house, so just trying to do all the things. But it's good to see everyone. I'm excited to hear about how the meeting went a couple weeks ago.
So Dylan and Lou, what has been happening with you?
I don't have much to say. Under the agenda items, I have some stuff to talk about, so I'll just save that. But the council meeting went really well, I thought. Good job, everyone. I just would echo what Victoria said. It's great.
Yeah, and I would also echo, I want to appreciate the Sustainability Advisory Board people for their presentation. I thought it was a good presentation, pretty much in line with what I think the council was hoping for. And so I just want to say thank you.
oh, that's good to hear.
Thank you.
And we appreciate the opportunity to be there.
For sure.
Victoria?
Would this be a time to mention the comment that was made on the doorstep on the way out by the new counselor, I just lost her name, who said that,
Carol?
Carol.
yeah, Carol said, encouraged us to not only come back once a year, but even twice. So I don't know if that's something we should talk about sometime.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to follow up on. Maybe, 3 or 4 months or so, we can start brainstorming what a meeting like that could look like and propose to hold that with the council again. They have the availability. But I think it's a good idea.
Lou, what is your feeling on how often it would be useful to have us there?
Well, I guess the code or the basically says once a year, but if you have new information or something that you want to propose, certainly you're welcome to do it more frequently.
Okay, thanks.
I just don't want to make it a sort of a pro forma thing where you have to be there twice a year.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for check-ins? No, I think we could, I think we should see if, is there anybody on for public comment? I forgot to ask about that earlier.
No, there's nobody.
I think I see anybody. Okay, I guess we can move on then to the next item, which is to just kind of go through the meeting that we had with council, line by line here for each of the items that we presented to them to see if there's any follow-up that we would like to put together to kind of keep that train rolling. So the first item that we have here is the resolution regarding the replacement of fossil fuel burning appliances and equipment. My takeaway was that the council was ready to kind of start talking about that internally and passing that around to staff. I think I came away with the impression that that was kind of out of our hands at this point, and if there was any further input that was needed, we'd probably be contacted. But that for the most part, I think we can say that's kind of a done deal as far as our input goes.
Yeah.
Is that your understanding, Lou, Dylan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a matter of getting it on the next council meeting, the actual business meeting, which will probably be in March.
Okay.
And Dylan, who kind of takes care of making sure that it gets on the agenda?
That'll be me. And I have to check with, Kathy, make sure that that meeting has space, but it should be pretty easy.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next item was the baseline energy data audit. So that was, I know that was handed off to the city staff. Lou, or Dylan, I'm not sure if the full details of that made it into the hands of council. I think the summary report did, but I don't know if any of the supporting data was also forwarded.
It was originally forwarded, but that became like the way that it transferred became like 500 pages or something. So then it got taken out of the thing we post on the website, but it was sent originally.
Oh yeah, there's several tabs on that, some of those Excel sheets.
Yeah.
I assume that the native files got into the hands of council. I don't know if there was time to look at any of those, but if there was any questions from staff or for council about like how that was put together, or how that might be repeated in the future, would certainly be able to take questions like that.
Yeah, I think when we get to the point of being able to do it, we probably will check in with you on how you went through it all. Yeah.
Okay. And I believe there are a couple of questions that came up in the course of that discussion about the city's generation of solar energy. I went through and looked through that audit and put an email together for the members of council just to point out the 2 locations in the city that I identified as actually having solar generation installed. I certainly think that we'd be interested in that being explored for some of the new facilities that are being planned, potentially the rec center. I don't know if it's too late for the new ops building for the public works department.
I just want to make a quick comment. Hopefully there's an executive summary rather than 500 pages of the
Yes,
report.
yes, I put one together, kind of explaining the process of where I got the data, what I did with it, and the takeaway.
No, I appreciate
So,
supporting data, but it's also nice to see a summary.
yeah. So I think the full summary established like a total greenhouse gas emission baseline. I think one thing maybe to say with respect to that is that another question that came up from the council was, hey, how much green energy are we purchasing? So I went back and I looked at a meeting that we had with a representative from PGE. Looked like it was about 2 years ago now. And this person said that the city was participating in green power purchasing plans, and that the city's current energy mix was, and this is the city as an institution, not the full Westland community, purchasing about 85% renewable energy, and that if they stayed enrolled in those programs, that would continue to increase to about 100% renewable energy by the year 2030. I should note that was not taken into account on the baseline energy audit. The energy audit assumed that the energy mix that West Linn receives is essentially just what is available on the grid. I think in maybe factual terms, that's what the city is using, but I don't think we should discount the fact that the city is enrolled in those programs, and we could probably take that into account and apply that towards the 80% reduction target. If anybody thinks that there's anything, maybe methodologically inconsistent about doing it that way. But yeah, at current, the baseline audit assumes that we're just doing, the average of what the grid has available. So we could already claim credit because the city is purchasing green power. Victoria, I think you're muted.
I'm muted, and I just have no idea how to respond to that, so I'm not unmuting.
I guess there's a question of, so like, the grid, it's all one grid. The power that you get is the power that's on the grid. It's not like there's a special distribution system for the green power. So, in actual physical terms, we're just using what's there, and there is a climate impact to that can be referenced on EPA website. But we are, the city's purchasing green power, and that I think shouldn't be discounted either. So I guess it's just a question of whether the group thinks it's reasonable to apply that green power purchasing program towards the emissions reductions target. I personally think that it should be, because it's not like the city can, I guess the only alternative is the city, goes on a spending spree and puts in a bunch of solar panels everywhere to cover that gap. I think that the only reasonably effective means of reducing the carbon footprint of the city is to participate in these green power programs, because that does mean that capacity is being built somewhere. You just can't separate it when it's on the grid.
Do you have a sense about how that could be done in a way that would be kind of more than speculative?
I don't think I understand your question, actually.
Well, how if we're basically kind of incorporating our purchasing of green energy into kind of our assessment about how close the city is getting to meeting like the eventual targets with regard to greenhouse gases, how would we be able to do that in such a way that it would be accurate in terms of the data?
I think the way to do that would be to take a look at what the city purchasing programs say about the sources of the power. Every energy source has some climate impact. It's just things like solar and wind have significantly reduced climate impact compared to other fossil fuel based sources. And so, we could basically just say, all right, 15% is just standard vanilla grid power, and we know the climate impact from that. That's published. And then we could look up the contributions from the other energy sources that are listed in the city's green power purchasing program. And it'd be a few lines in an Excel sheet, and we could come up with a number.
Great. Thanks.
On that topic, if I can jump in, a couple of years ago, I applied for a competitive program I think it was called, I can't remember the name of it, Green Power Futures or something along those lines. It was a group of cities and maybe big businesses that were working together to essentially pay to buy a solar generating facility. As local as we could. I think it's in Gilliam County. And that recently the construction finished. And so I can't remember the percentages of green power, it was up there. So as that's now I think it's online, I was hoping to get more information from PGE and we can talk more about that, I guess, in the future, but that's been happening.
That's great. I
There
think
was
that
like
the representative from PGE might have spoken to that at one point as well.
yeah.
Perhaps perhaps we could have somebody from PGE join us for a future meeting to give us an update and kind of tell us a little bit about where the city stands with respect to those programs, and then we could
Mhm.
count that towards our climate goals.
Mhm.
I'd certainly be interested in having a conversation with with those representatives again. I think one of them moved on to another company, but I'm sure they have somebody that is filling her role now at this point. Okay. Any other discussion on that item?
I would,
Okay, I guess we'll move on to
yeah, I would
Victoria.
encourage to finding an answer to that. So talking to PGE or whatever it takes to get that information, I would encourage that.
Yeah, and I have the spreadsheets in the contract somewhere. It's just I haven't looked at it in quite a while.
You want to share them?
Yeah, I can look them up. Yeah.
Great. I like spreadsheets. Okay, if there's nothing else there, then I think we can jump to the next one. Item 4C, the hiring of a sustainability consultant. My take from the meeting was that there was interest in pursuing something like this, and that we had at least one contractor identified. I believe in discussion with Greg and I had an opportunity to meet with Rory. And he said that it would be beneficial for the city to have a few different contractors to solicit bids from. I think that enables the writing of a purchase order for that to skip a few kind of like due diligence steps, especially since the expectation is that the fee for a consultant of this type would be below there's some monetary threshold that doesn't require the city to go out with an RFP for that. And I don't know if there's been any further discussion of that internally. Be interested to know if there has been.
A little bit. I did ask if there was a budget amount identified, and I don't know that we have that answer, or I don't know if anyone else had heard one in the past, but I do believe we have to get 3 quotes to meet the city's purchasing goals.
Okay. I think I know Greg has stepped away for the moment. I think Greg said that he might have had another. Or are you just on video or on audio only, Greg?
I just stopped video. I hadn't stepped away. Here.
Okay.
No, I got it. I did hear from Kim, who basically encouraged us to go with the good company, but I'll go back to her again and see like whether or not I can find at least a couple of others that we might be able to approach. She kind of felt like they really are the best folks in town, in the region to be able to approach. But I'll go back to her. Do you know of any other consultants, Dylan, that we could potentially draw upon just in terms of this process? Although it seems kind of unfair in ways to say, please give us a proposal here, or even though it's brief, when we may be pretty clear about who it is that we want to hire.
I don't know any other companies. And then part of the problem with this, because we kind of don't have a really well-defined scope, so it's kind of hard to go to 3 companies. I mean, it's nice to have a scope and then go to 3 companies and say, this is what we want, what price, so you can compare them.
Right.
I don't know if the good company, I mean, companies are willing to kind of help with that initial scope sometimes.
I can share with you what I shared with the good company.
Okay.
And it was a very clear scope, just in terms of what it is that we have talked about wanting, which was basically helping to identify grants that we could pursue to be able to kind of advance our sustainability agenda. And then the second thing was to help identify just the sequence of events that would be most likely to help us, again, achieve those goals, so that there would be something that would be available if and when a sustainability coordinator was ever hired. But I'll send the conversation that I had and my notes from that with the representative from the good company.
Yeah, would you mind copying me on that as well?
Oh, I'll be
Take a
happy
look at
to,
that.
sure.
I on the same topic as consultants, I do remember in the course of the meeting with council that there was talk of a management consultant being hired by the city. I don't know if that person like has been hired or if this is like a prospective thing. Is that something you could comment on, Dylan?
Yeah, yeah, they have been hired. They just recently started and are just in a number of trainings and things right now. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know if that person would, have any, sustainability related aspects to their job, or are they, has anyone asked them to kind of keep that in mind in the course of their duties?
I don't know because they're so new, but I do know, we talked to John briefly, and he was open, or maybe you were there for that. He was open to her helping us apply for sustainability related grants. I think that's on the table.
Okay.
But finding those grants and which ones we might be successful in might be something the sustainability consultant could help with.
Yeah. So is part of her role then to seek grants?
I think it will be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she'll have a number of finance related roles in addition to like helping people with grants like citywide. It's my understanding.
So, Dylan, would it be possible, like if we were able to find a sustainability consultant with regard to this, to have that person then work with this new hire to actually pursue specific grants that they had kind of uncovered that might be, strongly possible?
Yeah,
So
I think
that
that's
person,
I think that's likely to be how it would work. Yeah. I have no idea what her workload will be, but yeah, I think that's the idea.
Okay, good. So it would still be useful to hire like a sustainability consultant to basically help identify grants at this point that could be pursued, and then have that person actually do the legwork with regard to the grant writing.
Yeah, or if the consultant can help with some of the grant writing pieces too. I mean, I guess that's kind of yet to be decided, and where else we can put focus on sustainability things. I think the consultant will help with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Resources. Yeah.
I wonder if there might be benefit in, meeting with this consultant if they have time, just to kind of get our ideas in front of her as well.
That's a consultant, the new hire, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think that would be possible, Dylan? For Mike and me to meet with her?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that would be fine.
Okay. But
Okay.
like,
I don't want to rush
3 to
things
4
because she's
weeks.
just getting started. But
Yeah. Give it some time.
and-
Yeah.
yeah.
So why don't you let us know, like, when you feel the time would be appropriate?
Sure. And help remind me too, because I've got a lot of things
Okay.
going on. Yeah.
Sure.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. I'll take a note on that. Yeah. What do you think? Like check in with you in a month if we haven't heard anything.
I would say maybe even a little more than that. Month or two.
How about 2 then?
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about with respect to the consultant? Certainly think I'd love to see that finally come together. I think there'd be a real benefit to the city for that person to be hired on.
I want to say that this conversation just now has helped to clarify for me how this may be possible, how it may come together. So I appreciate it.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then we can move on to the next item, which is the revision to the tree code. I think we definitely need a little bit more information with respect to Goal 5. It sounds like the Goal 5 requirements is one of the principal kind of roadblocks to larger revisions to the tree code. And it sounded like from what John Williams said that there are ways to do these revisions that don't trigger that. and that other cities have been able to do that. Greg, I believe you reached out to Mark Gamba about what Milwaukee was able to do. I think you copied me on that, but I don't believe I ever saw a reply from him.
And I haven't gotten a reply, which is not surprising, just given the fact that the legislative session is like in full steam right now. So hopefully I'll hear something from him afterwards. But I think it probably would be valuable for us just to sit down with John and Darren and get a clearer idea about how Milwaukee was able to actually to kind of bring that amendment that we had proposed to the city council into being without triggering goal 5, which is what John said in the meeting. So if Milwaukee was able to do it, it seems like we should be able to do it as well. And at issue is just kind of figuring out like what specifics need to be included in the amendment so that it can be accomplished without, again, triggering goal 5 review.
That sounds somewhat legalistic to me. I'm wondering if, Dan, you might have some capacity to dig a little bit into this issue.
Yeah, I'd be happy to look into it. I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, I remember even at the council meeting, there was a lot of talk, people not knowing what goal 5 is and all that. But yeah, I'd be happy to dig in, do some research. So.
Great. I think we'd all appreciate that. It seems like just not knowing what goal 5 is kind of a big block for us. And if we can get some clarity on that, I think that'll really give us a clearer path forward on how to get some of these changes implemented.
I'll put that on my to-do list.
Okay. Yeah, we appreciate that.
Yep.
And I know that I think Rory in particular expressed interest in just, looking at ways that the tree code can be revised in a cost-effective manner. And I think, goal 5, avoiding that process is certainly part of that. But I think also our hope is that the kind of like ready to go language that's pulled from the Milwaukee tree code may help with that as well. I'm sure that there's some internal process that the city needs to go through regardless of how big of a change there may be. Is that true, Dylan?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, so Rory said, hey, we're into this idea of revising the tree code, but we want to do it in a cost-effective manner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that equation is avoiding goal 5 being triggered, but I assume that on some level too that there's an internal process that the city itself needs to go through in order to keep its ducks in a row. And
yeah, I think the community development code changes, it's a big process as well, and it's not something I'm super familiar with. It's something Darren or John would be able to talk to you about. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know if there's any way that we can kind of tee this up to make that easier. Maybe that's a conversation that we can have with one of those two gentlemen.
Yeah, and or maybe a key person in Milwaukee might be somebody to talk to.
Greg, you're muted.
Our contact in Milwaukee, Natalie Rogers, unfortunately has moved to another position. So we'll have to kind of find out who has taken her position. And I'm not even really kind of sure how Milwaukee has kind of continued on with its focus on climate change activism, given Mark Gamba's movement to the state legislature. But it's worth checking. So I'll try to get in touch with whoever is their natural resource manager now and see whether that person could give us some guidance.
I would think too possibly that they have somebody who's their equivalent of Darren, and that they would have been a critical part of that revision. That might be something that we could reference pretty easily through a staff directory with them. I'm just going to take a note. We can do that offline, but that might be another way to do it, because I know at least West Linn lists all the staff and their roles. Okay. Have any other items to discuss with respect to the tree code?
I recall one of the counselors bringing up her concern regarding, like the recent ice storm and all of that, which I think we all anticipated. But so, yeah, obviously any revision, I think we have to, consider emergency exceptions and all of that. But I think that was something we had all, anticipated and talked about already. But,
Yeah, I think that this also highlights the importance of the tree code, not just being there to promote tree canopy, but to promote healthy tree canopy. And we certainly see that in the wake of these ice storm events and the drier, hotter summers that we've been seeing, that our trees are probably a little bit more vulnerable than they had been decades ago. And so perhaps that's speaks to the need maybe for the city to be a little bit more proactive in terms of like assessing the health of trees. Um, I'm sure that's a big effort, but I think that would be a real value to the community as well if we can identify early trees that are going to be a problem, or places that would really benefit from additional tree cover, perhaps. Maybe some more intentional planning around the tree canopy would be something for the city to consider doing. I don't know who would do that and with what budget they would do that, but I think that would be a nice thing. But in the absence of that, yeah, we need to make sure that the tree code allows for those exceptions. I'm sure it already does, but I don't
yeah,
think we want any of our additional language to get in the way of those sorts of cases.
exactly.
But
I think the other piece of it is also just that in cutting trees that provide a kind of windbreak for other trees, as well as kind of diminishing the number of trees that are kind of holding one together, like a community of trees together just through their roots. That tree cutting can actually make other trees much more vulnerable to falling in different kinds of winds. So I think there's just a variety of different considerations that like hopefully like a city arborist would be able to bring to bear on those kinds of decisions. I know that my former sister-in-law lived in a neighborhood in Beaverton where some huge trees came down that were much more vulnerable to wind than they had been in the past because of other tree cutting that had happened and development that had happened in that particular area. So that the development itself can jeopardize already standing trees. And so it's really important to kind of look at the broader ecological context.
I believe that one of the specific sections of the Milwaukee Code that we had proposed to adopt addresses this idea of protecting root zones as well, which I think is, kind of runs parallel to what Greg is saying there. We want to protect the root structures of these trees so that they can hold each other up and prevent falls where possible. I think, we recognize that all trees are going to die at some point, but we want to maybe be able to manage that on a non-emergency basis. I think by protecting existing trees and their ability to support each other, that would be more possible.
Looks like Lou has his hand raised.
Oh, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Dylan while I've got him here. I understand our city arborist is in the process of retiring. Is there going to be a replacement? Do you know?
I would certainly expect that there is. Yeah, we kind of have to have a city arborist. There's so much tree stuff always happening. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
We are a tree city. The sign says on the way into town, into B City, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. Next up, then, if there is anything else on tree code update. Looks like a no there. Okay. Next item is going to be the climate resilience hubs. I think one of the things that was highlighted here in particular is that there's going to be some more funding coming through the state. I think it was Senate Bill 2990. Is that the number, Greg? I think you were the one that had that. Okay. But yeah, I expect this would be the sort of thing as well that we might have some assistance from the new management consultant or the hiring of the potential sustainability consultant. I know we're expecting there to be more adverse weather events in the face of climate change, and there's just, a benefit to having these sorts of resources available within the city. And not and in a way that isn't too concentrated. I think, we'd probably benefit from having more of these things that are smaller than fewer of these things that are bigger. It's hard to walk very far if there's an inch of ice everywhere, for example. Greg, do you have anything to add in respect to the Senate Bill 2990 that we should be concerned with?
Well, I guess it's like a question for Dylan. Just given the hat you wear in terms of emergency management, could you imagine the city and SAB sponsoring a meeting that would pull together churches, prophets, schools, as well as city buildings, to really kind of explore the possibility of creating these climate resilience hubs that both would provide opportunities for kind of cooling and heating depending upon weather conditions, but would also provide potentially a vehicle for doing more of the kind of community mapping that the city had engaged in the past. It seems like it's like a rich opportunity, and like a multiplicity of organizations could be applying for these grants. And it doesn't only have to be the city, but the city could conceivably coordinate it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And we do occasionally have meetings. We have been starting to have meetings with all the faith leaders and civic leaders and trying to kind of get on all the same page on different topics. This would be a great topic to get together on. And it would be nice if other groups were applying as well. I was just trying to look for this. I recently got an email about the Climate Resilience Hub grants. They're kind of building the program. The application is not ready yet. Just like everything, I think it's going to be a pretty quick turnaround. So timeline on all this stuff is always a struggle. But I can't find it right this second.
Yeah, and it seems like that's the reason for being. Oh, excuse me.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think that the timeline that often appears for these grants suggests that it's a really good reason for having actually done some of the background work now, rather than like after the grant and the RFPs come out.
I'm seeing in the text here that it doesn't look like the program is specific to climate either. So it could be potential that there's provision in some of this for, preparation for like the earthquakes that we could get.
Yeah. And Virginia
Victoria
had her hand up. Yeah.
Oh, it just seems to me that the elementary schools are the places that are most locally spread out throughout the city.
Yeah. And
I understand that there are problems in trying to deal with the school district, but I don't know. I'm just willing to maybe talk to the school district to find out, is that impossible? I mean, you said churches and nonprofit schools. What about the local elementary schools?
Oh yeah,
no, definitely school district.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dylan, what did you say?
Oh yeah, schools are definitely on the radar. As they have the biggest facilities as well, the biggest spaces, and that would be, when you have some big event, you want to have like not too many small space. If you can have a big space, that might be needed as well. Sometimes small spaces are nice, spread out, but sometimes you want to focus all your resources in one big space and get all the resources to that too. So that's something that would be nice to be talked about too. All these things, it's always the problem is staffing and access and liability. And so people are reluctant, but we should have the discussions. Yeah.
Okay.
Schools probably have generators as well.
But I'm going to have to sign off this meeting. Bye-bye.
Thank you for being
appreciate you joining us, Lou.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Dylan, just given the difficult relationship that the city has had with the schools for the last few years, do you think that would be something that members of the SAB could kind of initiate, to at least go in and talk with the superintendent and just kind of let them know that this is something that we're concerned about, and we're wondering like whether they would be willing to be participants?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be great.
Okay.
The more people that discuss it, know that the school knows there's interest from more groups, I think that's fine, yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't want to kind of step on any toes at the city with regard to kind of initiating those kinds of conversations. Now, I have no idea like where things stand with Oppenlander right now anyway, but and neither do you.
Not, I mean, it's all just, we're waiting, I think, for court dates and things. Yeah, I'm not quite sure where it's.
Yeah. Okay, good enough. Thanks.
Put it this way, this country and Russia have major difficulties, but still operate the space station together. So if, even though we're arguing about Arpenlander, we could still get together with the resilience hubs.
Yeah, I think our relationship with the school district is still really great. I think that's just,
Okay, good.
a little blip in the road, but otherwise it's fine. We talk to them all the time.
Okay.
Good.
Good.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then the next item on here is the walkable and bikeable cities. I think one of the big takeaways here was that the council thought there'd be benefit in us collaborating a little bit more closely with the Transportation Advisory Board.
That's what I recall as well. And
yeah,
I thought there was a name thrown out, like a specific name too. I didn't get that name down. I don't know if Greg, you or Mike were able to write that down.
Don't recall.
Okay.
I didn't. We can go look at we could look at the video of the meeting, but I imagine it might have just been some of the chairpersons or
Okay.
chairs.
Yeah.
I think one thing we could maybe perhaps plan on being a guest attendee at one of their meetings if they'd be willing to have us. We could also ask representatives from that board to come join us for one of our meetings.
Yeah, and I recall, Kate, you said you were interested in this topic. So yeah, I don't know if you want to assist in reaching out, or I can do it, or we could both do it or something.
Yeah, I'd be up for, I'm willing to do that because it gives me something to take on. So reaching out to the transportation group and just seeing if stop by one of their meetings, if one of them wants to stop by one of our meetings.
Yeah, I think so. Just start kind of, a collaboration with them,
Yeah.
letting them know we're interested and, want a seat at the table and a voice. So,
Yeah.
right, thanks.
Yeah.
And are there any particular items that we wanted to take to them? I know that, Dan, you had provided some testimony in the course of the meeting. I think I think there was some thought that like maybe some fairly some specific recommendations might be of particular value. I think you had identified some intersections.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I know myself and my neighbors and, kind of the community here along Willamette Falls Drive, there's a lot of, interest in creating a pedestrian corridor, from Athey Creek Middle School into downtown Willamette or Willamette area, whatever you want to call it. I was told when I moved here 3 years ago that some of the locals don't like to call it downtown Willamette, but historic Willamette maybe. But in any event, like a pedestrian corridor, like walkable and or bikeable, to encourage kids getting there. And then, I mean, I think everyone's dream is to eventually see that all the way down, Willamette Falls Drive to the high school and such. But, I mean, we can start, smaller. And then, just with these new roundabouts coming in, I believe they all have, they're more pedestrian friendly. So just kind of, more crosswalks, which, are associated with pedestrian corridors, right? I think that's, I can just tell you, from the neighbors that I talk to and the parents at Athey Creek Middle School, that is something, a goal that a lot of us have. So.
And I was at a Willamette Neighborhood Association meeting a year ago, and folks who live along 19th Street. had expressed real concern about the number of kids who've got to walk along that or bike along that to get to Athey Creek now. And much of it does not have a sidewalk. And people, can drive pretty fast on that road. And so I think people are really concerned about just the safety of their children. So that's like another place I'm hoping that the Transportation Advisory Board has on their radar.
Yeah, and really, I think that's what's so key here is, even us just first being able to listen into and talk with a representative of the Transportation Planning Board to kind of see, what's on their agenda, what's their focus, and then if we hear that some of these issues aren't being looked at by them, then we can raise those for them to consider.
Yeah. Well, I know that the city has announced that there's going to be a meeting next Wednesday and Thursday up at the police station about like a redesign plan for the road that I live on down by the river. And like, I'm just really curious about where the money is coming to, in fact, do that when there doesn't seem to be money available to actually improve 19th Street. Do you know, Dylan? Where is that money coming from?
I don't know where it is. I could look it up, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Craig, what is 19th Street? I'm trying to picture where that's at.
It runs between Blankenship and Dollar.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm thinking about like I bet every neighborhood has these because like I know some friends who like won't let their kiddos walk to school because of there's not a good crosswalk across or there's not like a blinking light crosswalk across Santa Anita at Pimlico, like right there because people speed down that way. I bet every neighborhood it'd be really interesting to see like from the neighborhood perspectives, like what are the barriers to like the current walkability and bikeability in each neighborhood. And I bet a lot of it is the like sidewalks, lighting, the extra, flashing lights for things like that. But it'd be interesting if we could find that out from each neighborhood, like we know our own individual neighborhoods.
Maybe that's something communicating with like HOAs or neighborhood associations,
I mean, and that is something the transportation system plan like has a map of like missing sidewalks and improvements and things, and that might be a place you could look.
Do you know whether the
Is that
transportation board
easily
has done
findable?
this?
Yeah, that's on our website, and
What would I look for? What would I search for?
Transportation system plan, and there's maps that show all the ped and bike spots that need to be infilled and other transportation improvements. So it's all kind of mapped out. It's just always funding, and then those get input into the capital improvement plan that kind of gets associated with the budget. So the capital improvement plans kind of spells out how much money we actually have for all those projects. There's just so many unfunded projects.
Yeah.
So how do those get prioritized? Like I'm thinking about, they put in a great blinking light on real close to Trillium Creek in a different area. So how do those get prioritized?
I don't know specifically. I know recently with the bond money to do a whole bunch of safe routes to school projects. And those were prioritized. The Public Works went out to all the neighborhood associations, got feedback, had a consultant, and then they prioritized all the safe routes to school projects. So there are more of those coming, I believe.
Oh, great. And that seems like such a clear overlap for us in terms of like, if it makes it more walkable, it's just the positive impact that has.
Yeah, absolutely. Dylan, is that transportation system plan something that you could send an email out to us on?
Yeah, I can send an email.
Search utility on the.
Sure.
Okay. Having trouble with the search utility on the city website.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm seeing too that the Transportation Advisory Board doesn't meet as regularly as we do. It seems like every couple months. I think the last time they met was in October. So we may need to, coordinate with them a little bit more closely just to figure out when they're planning their next meeting for, if we want to have somebody attend on our behalf. All right. Anything else on that item?
I don't think so.
Okay. So next up is the EV charging stations. Dylan, I know you said the city is starting to work through the grant process for a couple of locations.
Yeah, I know they were doing site visits at the library and historic Main Street, trying to work on the details for the application. That's the last I heard.
Okay. Is there any like documentation in that like is currently like publicly available for us to look at, or would
Um,
they be willing to like keep us in the loop on like kind of what that application looks like and how it's coming together?
I could ask the public works person that's working on it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure we'd appreciate a little bit of visibility on that. And I don't know if there's any further discussion too about the kind of the joint working group that Rory had proposed, getting together, commercial property owners and representatives from council and staff and the SAB and so forth. Is that anything that's been floating around internally?
Nothing yet. No.
Okay. Maybe I can reach back out to him and see if we can't get a little bit more traction on that. Because I'd certainly love to see the commercial property owners take an interest in that kind of infrastructure being installed. Does anyone have any other items for the charging stations they wanted to talk about? Okay. Next up is the gas powered leaf blowers. I know Dan, you did a great job presenting a lot of the background and context for this. And I think one of the main pieces of feedback that we got was that it might be tough to structure something that is like penalty based on account of the enforcement just kind of being a non-starter for that. And I think you had proposed that we kind of stage through this in terms of like education and then incentives, and I don't know if you'd had an opportunity to kind of think any more about like recommendations for how we might kind of approach encouraging that kind of transition within the community.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And can you guys hear me okay? I'm having some audio issues where it's cutting in and out, but
Yeah, I can
okay,
hear you.
great. Um, so yeah, like I said at the council meeting, I think there's certain stages we go, and enforcement's probably the last stage, right? Like the most difficult, if not impossible. Just how do you enforce it? And I think the easiest or first approach would be education. And from my research, just taking opportunities like even at the Earth Day, deal that we're doing, like perhaps, I can work on getting some, Craig, maybe you and I could work on getting some materials to hand out there. Again, this local nonprofit group called Quiet Clean PDX. I was going to reach out to them anyways, try to get a good contact person. I know they have a lot of materials that they're willing to share, so maybe we can get some printouts and stuff like that. I noticed that Lake Oswego SAB, they actually had Quiet Clean PDX give a presentation to their group. I thought that might be a good thing. We could invite one of their reps to come to one of our meetings and give a short presentation just to educate all of us, right? And then from there, I love the idea of, and this might be something like at the, during the summer, like at the country fair or whatever, I forget what we call it, but, if we could collaborate perhaps with somebody, one or two folks from the Parks Department and have, a few electorate, lawn machines, I don't know, or, tools there that we could help demonstrate, again, that's education outreach to just show people when they're there, like, hey, here's an electric mower, this is, kind of how you would use it, or, things, and they could just look at it. Kids love walking up and looking at, things like that, tools. And, so those were some ideas I thought initially just for like the upcoming 6 months as far as education and outreach. So I think the first step would be for me to reach out to that organization, see if they're willing to present to all of us. And then we can, from there, ask them more questions, and then also get some materials for the upcoming Earth Day booth as well. So
Great.
Yeah, I think that'd be good to have some information from them, or to have them join us.
yeah, and actually one other thing is that on the collaboration piece, I'm doing a little more research on these other municipalities in Oregon that are from, my initial research that, you have like Salem, Durham, and Eugene are three off the top of my head that I can think of that are trying to kind of work together to support statewide legislation. So I might reach out to, one or two folks in those cities and just see if at least I can get a contact person to talk to, and then eventually work up to that point where, perhaps we can collaborate with them and have a louder voice on the state level. So,
Yeah, good idea.
great.
Yeah, I like all of that. Those are
Great.
great ideas, Dan. And we might think about, over and beyond having somebody come in to speak with us, and someone at the Earth Day or at the Old Fashioned Fair, maybe trying to kind of organize a meeting at the library some evening to be able to ask somebody from Quiet Clean Portland to come in and just kind of basically share what they've been doing and their spiel. So it seems like that would be like a great opportunity to have a kind of a meaningful educational event that would be of interest to folks.
Great idea.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Okay, let's see, if there's nothing else there, then our next and last item for the meeting recap is the curbside composting. Actually, sorry, I want to jump back to this last item. Kind of in tandem with the resolution that we talked about earlier, I noticed that the person who reads the water meters for the city scoots around on a little moped that has what I believe is a two-stroke engine that's somewhat similar to those that are on gas-powered leaf blowers, and I thought that might be a particularly helpful place for the city to replace that with a battery-powered moped, especially because that moped probably spends more than half its time idling and just wasting energy and putting out
It's a
exhaust.
really,
It's
really good point, and not to mention that, the poor soul that's sitting on that moped all day. I mean, that's a lot of air pollution that person's breathing. But
so I don't know if there's a way to get that suggestion routed to the right people, or if there's somebody that would be helpful for us to reach out to with that suggestion that you could tell us about, Dylan.
I could certainly ask our water supervisor about it. It's not somebody that's on our staff, it's a contractor, so
Oh, okay. Well, good to know. Okay, a little bit out of our hands, but maybe we give them a friendly suggestion. Okay. Let's see then, jumping down back to curbside composting. It certainly sounded like the folks from Westland Refuse were willing to kind of look at the issue again, particularly considering that the boundaries that they thought that they had to stay within with respect to Metro aren't quite what they thought they were. I think there'd probably be a benefit to us to maybe having them back in again, just to ask them to follow up on that and see if they haven't been able to put together a version of that plan that is less expensive and allows people to opt in or opt out. I think I would be curious about, you know, the no opt in, no opt out, just everybody version. Yeah, it might not be politically feasible, but I'm curious about the cost differential between those two versions as well. But maybe we can, you know, I don't know, give them a month or two or something to put their plan together and have them back out, you know, perhaps in April or something.
On that topic, I did actually make some moves. I've been talking to the Westland Refuse rep
Yeah.
and asked him to kind of do what he can, some legwork on refining the cost, using the other place depots. And then also the takeaway I got from the council meeting was that we were going to have like a little task force, myself, maybe a member or two of the SAB and a council member. So I reached out to council and asked if who would be interested. Rory expressed some interest. So I just need to know maybe who's interested, a member or two, and then we can kind of do a little meeting with us and Westland Refuse and kind of talk about the details. And
Okay.
I see Victoria.
Victoria?
Oh, I would be happy to do that. And I also noticed that Mary Baumgartner was very interested.
She was, and I was surprised she hasn't emailed yet. Two counselors could come on it if she's interested. I could check in with her again, but yeah.
Which counselor said that he or she was interested? Oh, I
Mary
guess
Baum-
Rory.
Mary
Rory.
Baumgartner
right,
was so over the top enthusiastic. She apologized for her geekiness. It was cute.
Yeah,
She
maybe
also
Victoria.
expressed
I could
interest.
work with you on that.
Kate, what?
I said
Sorry,
maybe
go
I
ahead.
could work with you on that, so we could have two of us on that.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Thank
I
you.
actually think that Mary's idea about just exploring the possibility of worm bins is pretty interesting, just with regard to a way that the whole process could be kind of made much more localized. And so we wouldn't be kind of shipping our food waste quite as far. Because even if we're taking it to a transfer station that might be down in Canby, it ends up having to be shipped all the way down to Corvallis. So there's a lot of fossil fuel at the moment anyway, that is being used to kind of move this stuff around. So it would be interesting just to see like whether there are any cities that are in fact doing something like with worm bins as a means for dealing with food scraps.
Mary mentioned a particular city, but I can't recall which one.
I can't either. But it might be worth, you know, just giving her a call to find out if you're going to sit on that committee.
Sure, I'll call her.
I would wonder with the worm bins, you know, what the plan is for gathering all that material. Because if the idea is that, you know, residents of the city drive their food scraps to the worm bin, I imagine that like the driving itself is probably going to, you know, have a greater climate impact than the potential benefit of composting the food. So
No,
I would
I
think
think
that
what
these
I was
things might need to be distributed throughout the city if they were to be implemented.
Oh, I guess what I had in my mind was just that whoever is picking up the food waste would be taking everything that they picked up from people's homes as part of the kind of the garbage pickup. That would then be taken to a central location where the city would be kind of dealing with that composting itself. But that would almost require having a separate person responsible or a team of people responsible for overseeing that. So it like I'd just be really curious about whether anybody's actually able to do it.
Yeah,
So
I think that would
the
require a
example,
separate bin too.
yeah.
I don't think worms deal with like wood and hard materials very well. It would just have to
Well,
be the
no,
food
it
or
would just
leaves
have
and
to be the food. Yeah, it would have to
Well,
be the food.
and they don't like meat.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
yeah. Yep.
So maybe it's, might not be workable.
Well, we could certainly explore the issue.
I'll call
Mhm.
Mary and ask her what she knows about that.
Did West Linn Refuse give you any sense for like how long they might need to kind of get back to you?
They didn't. I just said I was going to work on getting this joint meeting set up, and yeah, no timeline exactly.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on curbside composting? Okay, take that as a no. All right. Forgot to include a new business item on here, but there is an action item recap agenda item. So I just want to run through kind of what I have listed here. So we want, actually, maybe that's better to do after your new business.
Yeah.
So it's just open up to the floor if anybody thinks there's any new business they'd like to raise for the group. I think one thing that I understand to be coming down the pipeline, and I think Greg, you've spoken to this before, is that there is a community weatherization and like heat pump grant program coming online pretty near term.
And so it struck me that it might be worthwhile to see if we could find whether there's a person at the state level who would be willing to come and again do another kind of meet at the library that would present to the public the opportunities that they could pursue to get rebates for heat pumps and weatherization efforts. My impression is that much of that money is going to be earmarked primarily for low-income neighborhoods. But when I looked at the grant itself, it wasn't specifically earmarked to only that population. So do you think, Dylan, that would be a kind of a valuable thing for the city to sponsor, in that it would really be in a significant way kind of addressing some of our climate goals? Because so much of the carbon that's released from West Linn is really tied into the built environment and people's homes. So people were actually, more people were weatherizing and buying heat pumps, it would make a difference in terms of the city's overall greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, I mean, it's always just a matter of how many people show up for those things. I was thinking of the past ones we've had. If it might just be something that might be better off in the newsletter or like a website that we promote. That just was my initial thought.
The difference between this and those other meetings is that what the emphasis would be specifically would be on applying for rebates.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like that would be potentially of interest more than, the other topics that we've had meetings about, in part because it would affect people's pocketbooks. So this is money that's available. I think that it should for sure be advertised, and like we could write up something in the city newsletter about it, but having somebody who would actually be able to walk people through the process of getting that rebate might be of interest. Because there were going to be, at least what I read, in the $3,000 to $4,000 range.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how difficult it is. If it's something people can just like click a link and go to a website and it's nice and clear and a nice put together website, I don't know if that exists.
Yeah,
you might get a lot more people, but either one, up to you guys.
Yeah, I think I haven't been able to identify the program either that is for this heat pump and weatherization. I tried Googling it for
I'll
a
see if I
while.
can find it. I think I bookmarked it, and so
Okay.
I should be able to locate it.
Okay, great. I think making this known to as many people in our community as we can would be a good thing, and making sure that there's removing any boundaries or barriers to getting those applications submitted.
Yeah. So I think that Dylan's question is good. Like, if there's really no need for that kind of educational effort, then just simply putting something in the newsletter, I think, would be a good idea.
Yeah. I wonder if there's, maybe there's somebody from the state that can, I think you mentioned bringing someone in from the state, but like perhaps there's somebody on the state level that can kind of give us an overview of the grant programs that are available and that the community members and the city could take advantage of, broadly speaking.
Mm-hmm. Would you
Sure
know
who that
of
would
who
be,
might be able to do that, Dylan?
No, it's not something I know about.
Okay.
I can take an AR to figure out if there's somebody.
Mike, you and I could just kind of put our heads together and figure out how to actually begin asking the question and who might be able to answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm finding something on this, but it's for low income, but it's Oregon. It's the state of Oregon programs.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And this is it's a new program that hasn't come online yet, I think. Is that right, Greg?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
your
that one.
recollection?
Yeah. And that one is just low income. The one that I saw that was kind of going to be implemented later in 2024 was across income levels. And that's one I'll try to find.
Okay. Great. All right. Any other new business? I don't think I had anything else. I think it looks like Kate logged off also. So I'm just going to run through any action items that I jotted down here. So let's see here. As a reminder, we're having the Earth Day event on April 27th, and we've been asked to forward any ideas for participants to Greg via email. Let's see. Next up, be good for, I guess I can take the lead on this, potentially contacting. Oh, welcome back, Kate. I think we lost you for a bit there.
Sorry, just yeah, I'm having some trouble with I think my internet.
No worries. I had just reminded the group that Greg asked for any participant ideas for the Earth Day event on the 27th to be emailed to him if you have any. Let's see. I'm going to reach out to somebody at PGE to see if we might be able to have them in to kind of give us a status update on the city's energy purchasing. We also need to find a couple more potential consultants to have bids for the city for the sustainability consultants. So I think we need to find a way to identify those. I think Greg, it
for
might.
that, Mike.
Okay.
I'll do that. Yeah.
Let's see here. I've got a note here that might follow up with Dylan in a couple months to see if it might be a good idea for an SAB to chat with the management consultant that's just been brought on after they have some time to kind of like get up to speed and familiar with the city's processes and all that. Regarding the tree code, I think there could be some benefit to us to identifying, I guess, Milwaukee's equivalent of Darren Weiss. Is it Weiss or Weiss?
Weiss.
Weiss, okay. Let's see. Next up, we want to start engaging more with the Transportation Advisory Board, and Dan and Kate were identified as being point people for that. Just looking at their meeting schedule, I don't think that they have one scheduled at the moment, and the last time they met was in October. So we might need some advanced planning to get hooked up with that group and participate with them. It might be easier for them to come join us rather than us join them, but maybe that's just a conversation to be had with them. I'm gonna check in with Rory to see if there's any thought on getting that EV charging working group together to kind of keep the ball rolling with getting EV chargers rolled out into the city, apart from ones that might be grant funded. It sounds like we want to potentially have Quiet Clean PDX. Either have an event at the library or have a representative come talk to the board here. Dan, I can't remember, Dan, if you said that you had already been in contact with them directly or if you were just relying on resources that they'd published.
Just resources, but yeah, I'm going to reach out and get a contact person.
Okay. And then
I'll be happy to kind of check with Milwaukee. around their kind of equivalent of Darren.
Okay.
And the tree code.
And then I don't think I wrote this down, but I think Dan, you had said that you'd be able to kind of research the goal 5 requirements and what triggers that.
You bet.
Okay. And then I think I'll reach out and see if there isn't somebody from the state of Oregon that might be able to kind of run through any of the energy related grant programs that they have. Looks like they've got a website that kind of addresses that, and that may not be needed, but we can look into that and see if that's appropriate for a future meeting. Am I missing any takeaways or action items for anybody else here, myself included?
Oh, Victoria were you going to approach the schools?
I felt that Dylan said that they're already in conversation with the city on that. Am I right, Dylan? That they're being considered as part of that picture.
It's being considered. We haven't had any active discussions about it lately.
Would an active discussion on my part talking to them help?
I mean, it's probably something I can start with their facilities people that do emergency management. It's just a matter of prioritizing. I just have so many things going on. But that one kind of is more important because of the grant stuff coming up soon.
Yeah, there's that big.
And were we also going to try to kind of schedule or try to organize some event where we're bringing together all the various places that might be suitable for these kinds of opportunities, churches, schools, and so on. I think there was talk of a community meeting about that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was talking about. The schools, wrapping it all in with the churches as well.
So is that something the city would organize, or is the hope that how would that happen?
I think we would organize it based on having that group that we've kind of organized with them before. It is hard to get them all together in a timely manner, but it's something we can try. I can talk to our community services manager because he's the one who's organized those in the past and see what he thinks.
Oh, it's Doug's group, the Westland Summit.
Yep.
With the police and the churches. Yeah, actually, I think that would be a good group, particularly if the schools could be involved in it, and then kind of identify any other organizations that, like Robinwood Station, for example, would be kind of a logical place to, and Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue would be, good to include in that as well. Mm-hmm. So I would be happy, Dylan, just to sit down and kind of brainstorm for a half hour at some point with you. You could fit it into your schedule just to kind of figure out how to pursue this, because I think there is the money available, and it clearly is a need that needs to be addressed shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that'll work. Thanks, Greg.
Okay, good. So we can schedule a meeting then to do that. Great.
I think one other item was, I think, Victoria, you were going to maybe reach out to Mary to chat more about composting.
Yeah, I'm going to find out what she knows about the especially the worm bin on a city level.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
As opposed to backyard level. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's the end of my list there. And if anybody has anything else that they remember. Okay, I think that's it for our agenda items. Anybody has anything they want to add before we break?
Other than just to thank you all. This is very productive.